The number one comorbidity for everything is obesity.
I think the times where we can get away with not lifting, I think they're over.
The biggest reason that people can't adhere to a diet is hunger.
Most people you see are walking around obese. We are a fat country in the great fattening of 2020, where everybody stayed home. The government shut down gyms, yet they delivered liquor and food to people's houses.
I don't know what it's like to cry myself to sleep over some other kid making fun of me because I'm fat.
Hey, one last question before Andrew takes us out of here, and that is, can you give us your thoughts on what are... You've talked many times before about how important it is for most people in America to lose weight and the health benefits associated sometimes with even just losing about 10% of your body weight. What are your thoughts on Ozempic and some of these other types of drugs that are helping to suppress people's appetite? Is there something that we're not paying attention to? Or is there something that's going to rear its ugly head with these particular pharmaceuticals?
I don't see it at all. I think it's one of the most amazing things tools that has become available, incredibly effective. It's a significant safety profile. I don't think any more so side effects than would be for that kind of weight loss in the absence of. I know that Dr. Peter Attia came out recently and had made the claim that people were losing muscle at a greater rate, and in fact, that's not the case. And we have obviously, with us recommending lifting weights and eating sufficient protein, you can completely
maybe taking a little testosterone.
Maybe a little bit of that too. You can completely eliminate that problem.
Yes.
They're incredibly effective. I mean, I've said many times that the biggest reason that people can't adhere to a diet is hunger. And willpower is not an effective strategy to overcome hunger. You're not lazy, you're not undisciplined. I mean, there's a whole hormonal milieu that says, F off, get me some food right now. And you're just miserable. And we utilize a lot of techniques for that. We have a whole toolkit full of satiety things: eat more protein, eat more fiber, drink more water and sleep more, and whatever. They're largely ineffective. I got to be honest with you. I always felt like I landed in the wrong industry with our 90+% failure rate. You feel bad all the time when you're trying to help somebody, and the recidivism is terrible, and most diets don't work, not specifically because of the diet, because of lack of adherence. And I always said I wished I'd gotten into the chiropractic business, because 95% of pain resolves itself spontaneously within 4 to 6 weeks. No matter what the hell you do, you high five the guy on 10 visits and be like, "You're good." I'd like to be in a business that kind of a success rate, irrespective of the intervention. But those medications are unbelievably effective. Some people, as everybody, it's individualistic. They'll respond with more gastric distress than others. Same thing would happen with, say, metformin. Some people just get nausea. It does slow down gastric motility, the rate at which food passes through your stomach and your intestines, and that can cause a problem for some people in terms of, say, constipation or whatever, but you just got to drink plenty of water. The recommendation there is just to titrate appropriately. Don't just jump right in at 1 milligram a week. I would even, and they have weekly injections because they found that it's more convenient for the individual. The compliance is better. Me, who's quite accustomed to jabbing myself with every other drug on the planet that makes me potentially bigger or stronger, I don't mind daily injections. You can do that, and daily smaller doses of more frequent injections can tend, and again, starting at a lower amount and titrating it over time, monitoring side effects over time, can help minimize the acute effects of the nausea, et cetera. So that would be my recommendation, to try and get on the front end with some of those things. But my only complaint is that they're extraordinarily expensive. Not everybody can get them covered by insurance. The long-term weight loss maintenance is north of 16, sometimes 20+%. Long-term weight loss maintenance in the control group is 2%. So, I mean, it's just nothing on the planet right now. People were talking about putting statins in the water because they thought that would decrease cardiovascular disease. That pales in comparison to the benefits of weight loss in terms of overall mortality risk. you talk about wanting to put something in the water to get people to eat less. I mean, there's a lot of people that, who would wish that the government would intervene with ultra-processed foods, because we see that overeating is the primary driver of the obesity epidemic. Is just increased calorie consumption and the availability of highly palatable, ultra-processed, high-calorie foods. And we see when you compare two groups of people that eat whole foods as compared to ultra-processed foods, the ultra-processed foods people eat 500 more calories a day on average. Mm-hmm. That's really ultimately the foundation of it is what our obesity epidemic is caused by, is over-consuming those kinds of foods. I did a video on the obesity epidemic some years ago, and I talked about the fact that it probably would take government intervention to have a significant impact. Unfortunately, they'd screw it up and they'd charge everybody way too much money, and they would pilfer, as is happening now. They'd get donations from all of these large processed food companies to usurp any benefits that we might realize. So I don't think that's an effective solution. We'll have to come up with something, but it's going to take something at a great level. This is probably the second best thing to some sort of intervention, is using semaglutide, Ozempic, and the others. My big concern is that I thought it was too expensive. Merrick Health has, through their compounding pharmacy, pharmacies, one of the largest in the country. FDA is on site. This is why it really maddens me that you get some MDs that complain about using compound pharmacies, and the reason being is because their customers are going to compounding pharmacies to get this medication for less than half the price. Jeez. And so they lose the customer. It's not like they're getting kickbacks from pharmaceutical companies, and so they'll make these absurd claims about compound pharmacies being unsafe, but they are FDA regulated, and there's certain to be bad actors out there, but they're very safe, very efficient, very effective. Pharmaceutical companies are by no means absent responsibility for the most sued companies on the planet. 60,000 people died from Vioxx. I wouldn't want to bank on pharmaceutical companies as being more responsible than, on average, than the alternatives at an FDA regulated compounding pharmacy. But you can through Merrick Health you can get the same medications, or very similar, very effective, for about half the price. And I think that right now cost is the biggest barrier to entry, and I think more people suffering. I mean, 70% of our population is overweight or obese. More people should be losing more weight, and if this is the most effective intervention, we should make it more affordable for them.
So, just a question along with that. In theory, if somebody were to use Ozempic or semaglutide, Peter Attia mentioning how people lose muscle, would it just be, since like your appetite is blunted and you have nausea, so you don't end up eating as much, when you do eat, you want to prioritize trying to get protein and try not to eat hyperpalatable food? Because it seems like if you have your same diet habits, but now you're losing a lot of weight and now you're just eating still processed crap.
They did find that when people go off the medication, and if they have their same crappy diet habits, they can gain their weight back. And which is one of the concerns that some people have, is that it becomes a lifetime medication. Because the behavior change doesn't come with it. So there should be some good counseling. And I want to go back and reiterate that because Dr. Peter Attia said that people were losing muscle, doesn't mean it's factual. It means when you compare a similar weight loss, whether it's Ozempic or in the absence of that, you get a similar muscle tissue loss. There's no, he doesn't have any evidence to point to. This is what he said he saw in his clinic. We don't have any randomized controlled trials showing that that's factual. I just wanted to make sure and mention that shouldn't influence somebody's decision. And if you had any concern about that, eating sufficient protein and lifting some weights completely solves that problem. There we go.
I think obesity is pretty simple. People are eating too much and doing too little. Now, there's a difference between preventing obesity and making people optimal and jacked. But I mean, I think it's a pretty easy. Now, there's a difference between fat, overweight, and obese. Obese is obese. And that's the epidemic we're in right now. And most people you see are walking around obese. We are a fat country in the great fattening of 2020, where everybody stayed home. So the government shut down gyms, yet they delivered liquor and food to people's houses. It's almost like they wanted us to, I'm not by any means doing that conspiracy theory thing, but if I was an alien, I dropped down here, I'm like, you did what? Y'all just wanted people to get fat. And I think that obesity is a simple thing that is very hard to actually implement how to fix it. And the reason is people are lazy and people like processed foods because it triggers this whole array of emotions and everything from the olfactory, the smell of the food, to the taste, to the remembering that mac and cheese your mom made when you were a kid, or maybe you had a situation you weren't feeling so well, your girlfriend broke up with you and nothing made you feel better than going to Boston Market and getting their mac and cheese. So there's all these emotional attachments. So the answer to obesity is pretty friggin' simple. The implementation of curing obesity is extremely hard because we're up against big food and we're up against big pharma. If you're dead, you don't make them money. If you're healthy, you don't make them money. They want you just sick enough to need their pills and their potions and all that stuff. They want you sick. They do not want us. It is financially negative for them. It is a financial detriment. People like us are financial detriments, except for the testosterone manufacturers. They're making a ton of cash on us. No, except for Nsima. He still pretends he's natty.
I hate you so much. I'm trying to find this clip from 60 Minutes where I don't know if you guys saw, but this lady was saying that obesity is genetic. I'm trying to find this clip.
And now she's on the government's board of dietetics.
I would like to.
Okay.
I'd like to add like the common thread among once somebody gets to be obese, I think that starts to get complex. Because of many life experiences, like when you're young, you may have been the fat kid and so on. And like, there just might be a lot of baggage with that. There might be a lot of mental capacity that, it might be easy for some of us to say, you got to eat better and but they are literally like paralyzed by some of their own thoughts. And I can be open and honest and say that I've been paralyzed by my own thoughts before, felt disempowered, from my own thoughts or didn't believe in myself enough to do something. So I can understand once you get into that situation, how it can be kind of complex, even though they know and we know that some changes in the food that you eat and some changes to your daily habits, you moving more, would be a great idea, but maybe they're just stuck in this loop that's very hard to get out of. I'll finish before we play this clip. The one thing that ties every obese person together is the same thing that ties everyone together that gains body fat in the first place. And it's what I've been talking about for years, and I say it time and time and time and time again, but it doesn't seem to stick. It's your food choices.
Yes.
It's your food choices. It's your food choices. If you only had access to fish and meat and vegetables, that would help auto-regulate your satiety signals, your hunger signals, your cravings. It would help with everything. I realize that this is a made-up world that I just made up where you only got like meat, vegetables, and eggs, and you put them on repeat.
Yes.
You would lose a lot of weight because protein is going to be the thing that helps keep those hunger signals down. And over time, you will start to eat less and less energy. Energy, again, comes from fat and carbohydrates, not so much from protein.
You couldn't be more correct, and I couldn't agree with you more. It's when I first started modeling when I was 21, I was getting ready for a photo shoot for Men's Fitness, and it was pretty simple. I just ate chicken and veggies, and I got shredded. So when I travel, and I'm not interested, I'm not trying to bulk, so I'm not worried about I need white rice. White rice, if you think about it, is kind of stupid. There's no micronutrients. It's just glucose.
Just some carbs.
So like yesterday, I'm at the airport. I actually filmed it. It was just a place I always go to at Terminal 5 LAX called, I think it's Donbury. And you get the teriyaki bowl. You just get the steamed veggies and double chicken. It's expensive as hell, but think about it. I'm getting all protein and veggies.
Yeah.
If you want to lose weight, eat whatever meat you want. Of course, don't cook it with breading and stuff, but eat ribeye, eat steak, eat pork. Of course, except for the Jews and Muslims, they can't have that. So eat anything, any of those proteins. So hell, even get a whey protein powder or your shake or your steak shake. Perfect. and eat veggies.
And you'll feel full. Like,
and you will
overeat that shit if you want.
Dude, eat all so I eat probably a pound of carrots a day. Woo! I love carrots. They satiate me. My poop comes out phenomenal. It's a great fiber source, great source of vitamin A. I eat the hell out of carrots because I digest them easy. Learned that again from Stan Efferding, from his vertical diet.
Yeah.
A diet that at first I'm like, why would you eat rice? And now I'm like, oh, his diet's actually one of the best diets on the market if you're looking for a packaged diet. It's fantastic. The vertical diet is, I was like, this diet stew. I did videos on it. And then I'm like, I retract everything I said. My bad.
Let's go.
Dude, but here's the thing. Like, I will call stuff out. And if I'm wrong, Lane just did a post about Lane Norton. He did a post about this. Lane was like, I've been wrong about boom, 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 boom. And I'm like, well, shit, yeah. We shouldn't believe the same thing we believed 20 years ago. It evolves. Like, it worked, but can we do better? Can we do better? So I've learned a lot. So I've implemented, like I said, I'm not doing the vertical diet, but I have a component of carrots. I learned about carrots from the vertical diet.
Yeah.
But again, it's one of those things where if you simply take out, and carbs are fine. I love carbs. If you simply take out the simple carbs and you eat meat and veggies, you're going to get results and they're going to be really good. You don't have to measure anything. Obviously it's not going to be optimal. You're not going to get in great condition, but dude, you're going to be better than 99% of people. But again, the media and big pharma, who pays 70% of the media's bills, 70% of their income is from big pharma. They want you sick and they want you weak.
One of the reasons why Stan recommends rice is just the ability to digest it. So because it doesn't have much in it, most people can digest it. People have allergens and trouble digesting corn and beans and a bunch of other flour and things like that. But white rice, most people are like, yeah, I can eat that. One of the issues is that it can encourage you to eat like more than you probably should in a given meal. So if you're somebody that is trying to regulate your body weight, then you just might need to be cautious on how much rice you eat.
I think that diet started out for athletes. So athletes normally have trouble getting in enough food. So again, I ate shit on that one because I was wrong, 100% wrong. And I personally apologize. Don't think to him, but his guy. I'm like, bro, I reached out. I'm like, my bad. Did a public apology because I jumped the gun. And I do that a lot.
Yeah.
But I'm always willing to be like, oh, my bad. So again, there's certain things I've been wrong about. That was one.
I hate to sound like a broken record, but your sleep quality most likely sucks. Aww. It's one of the biggest things that we talk about on the podcast. So many guests have come on and talked about how sleep can help you stick to your diet, stick to your workout plan, lose body fat, gain muscle, all the good things that you're trying to do, but it's hard to do because you might be snoring. And if you're snoring, that's why we've partnered with hostage tape, which is mouth tape that you can put over your nose, your mouth, when you're asleep to help you stop snoring and breathe through your nose. But if you have been breathing through your nose this whole time while you've been sleeping, it's going to be a little bit difficult to get air through there. That's also why hostage tape has nose strips to help open up your nasal airways and make it easier to breathe through your nose when you're asleep. Now, your partner won't be having a with you when you're asleep because you'll be actually breathing through your nose. Andrew, how can they get it?
Yes, that's over at hostagetape.com/power project, where you guys will receive an entire year supply of nasal strips and mouth tape, all for less than $1 a night. Again, that's at hostagetape.com/power project. Links in the description as well as the podcast show notes. When do you guys think it's appropriate for like the meal, that example that you gave in the airport, just veggies and double protein?
Yep.
I'm assuming that was cooked in some sort of sauces and oils or anything like that?
Nope, you get it with no sauce.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was going to, I have it ready to share as a reel today, but I'm like, I'm going to start documenting what I eat because people have trouble figuring out what to eat. Like, I'm obviously not going to bring more business to Terminal 5 LAX, but it shows you that if you go to Flame Broiler, you could do the same thing. If you go to Chipotle, if you can't follow your diet at Chipotle, you need to fall off the face of this earth. They got grilled onions and peppers. They got chicken and steak. And then you get the salad bowl. You can eat all the salad bowls from Chipotle you want and get shredded. It's literally meat and very little sauce or no. I mean, it's just grilled in whatever they grill it in. And there you go. And throw some pico and corn on there and you're good to go.
Yeah.
And you get corny poop.
That's always fun to see. It's a nice little dressing
like
that you can look at. Yeah.
A little dressing on
Throw
top.
a little bit of pumpkin seeds in there.
Oh, God, that's disgusting.
Let's see what we got.
Well, we
here.
started there. We might as well go back.
Yeah. All right, you guys ready for this?
Ready. I like her lipstick. Matches her
If
dress.
you diet, you lose weight, right?
The number one cause of obesity is genetics. That means if you are born to parents that have obesity, you have a 50 to 85% likelihood of having the disease yourself, even with optimal diet, exercise, sleep management, stress management. So when people see families that have obesity, the assumption is, what are they feeding those kids?
Real quick.
She had me for a second there.
She said optimal diet and exercise. Because if we think about her statement, if we really just listen to what she said, she is right in a way, right? Not optimal diet and exercise, but these parents who are obese, they have bad habits. They probably have the wrong food in the environment. They've probably tried to help their kid lose weight, but they don't have the habits themselves.
Yeah, I would say that this would be similar to like religion. You know, we found that 50 to 80% of Catholics came from Catholic backgrounds.
There we go.
Because it's a meme that's passed on. It's a propagation of a thought process, not so much these people, they're not making the big changes. They are developing similar habits to mom and dad is what I think.
If you want to do a field trip, let's go to Walmart. Let's go to Walmart.
That's where I saw you a few years ago.
Yeah,
first time. Met you in a Walmart.
Hey, how are you doing, man? Yeah, I love Walmart, by the way. You know how much? So inflation hasn't affected me. I shop at Walmart. It's still cheap as hell. Like, yeah, we do. Yeah, we grocery shop at Walmart, Aldi, and Costco. That's our big three. But anyway, so here's the thing. Go to Walmart, look in the carts. The reason fat people are having fat kids is because they're eating like their fat parents and instilling those habits. And as you get fat, your body develops new fat cells. So you have these fat kids, they're developing, they're basically, the fat is just dividing and dividing and dividing and dividing. So they have more fat cells, they're able to get fatter. And then they grow up and they have the same habits and they have insulin resistance and they just have no exercise habits and they're fat. So it's nature versus nurture. They're genetically fat because they're genetically eating what their fat genetic parents are feeding them.
But
There's another genetic component to it where it's believed that you can affect 5 to 7 generations downward from you. So in terms of like where my genes were at when I had my kids, they might have a propensity to be obese a little bit more than someone else, even though my wife wasn't heavy, but I was kind of heavy at the time. There's some genes in my family where people are, again, these aren't people that are like eating properly either. So, you know, it's probably a small factor that there's a genetic component in there, but it probably is a factor. So I think it's a combination of multiple things going on, but I couldn't agree more that it starts and it ends with the habits. If you have good habits on the food choices that you have and you have good habits with your movement, you will not be fat.
You were fat. I was fat. We're not fat anymore. How do we do that? We change lifestyle.
Right.
And there's ways to mitigate insulin resistance and all these different things through diet. Like we were talking before about even things that you did for lactose intolerance and IBS. Food can be medicine. And it can be a cure. And exercise, you talk about insulin resistance. Here's a good way to get rid of that. Exercise. You know, look at what EFFERDING does with the 10-minute walks, right? Look at all these different things, and that's not a scientific advancement. And that used to be like, people think about it, if you work construction, you eat lunch, you go back to building shit. Like they're fine, their insulin resistance is fine. So you look at what we're putting these children through, and we look at the fact that right now, you literally took away sports in 2020 for the greater good, right? I say that like this. You know, you took away sports. And a lot of these kids never came back. And also remember, like you look at the holiday weight gain studies, people gain weight during the holidays and they don't lose it, but they don't gain much. It's only like 4 to 6 pounds. It wasn't anything crazy, but they do it every year. So after 10 years, that's 40 pounds. So you look at the accumulation effect of what they're doing. So it's a bad head start. Like we talked about generational wealth earlier. If you start with $1 million, like it's really easier to make more millions of dollars if you do it correctly, right? If you start with $0, you have to get to that million first. So if you get your kids with a horrible start versus someone with a head start and being healthy and having the habits, they're more likely to be overweight. Now, the difference genetically isn't that you can't lose weight with optimal diet, training, and sleep. It just means that it might be a little bit harder. As someone who coaches a ton of people, I have online coaching. I have some people who I can literally, cut whipped cream out of their diet and they'll lose 20 pounds. I have other people who are literally on 800 calories and you're like, then you have to utilize diet breaks and refeeds and all these different things just because that's how their body is.
Yeah.
And people have different metabolic adaptations, different metabolisms, different genetics, different thyroids, different everything. So everybody's individual. But the one thing we know is that if you're eating in a caloric deficit, you're not going to be on my 600-pound life.
When I heard that clip and I saw that clip, it kind of made me think about, my mom, when she was raising me, she always let me know what the statistics of fatherless children were.
Really?
Because my dad wasn't there. So she always let me know what those statistics were, but she always let me know that also, you're not a statistic. There are ways that you can not end up in this position, ways that you can work, places where we can put you as far as education. Like, you don't have to end up this way. It's all about the choices you decide to make. Now, the problem that I see here is that there are statistics when it comes to obesity in children, especially having obese parents and having a higher propensity of being obese. But the problem is that this takes away the power from those people who are obese. It gives them a scapegoat. Because one of my reasons my mom did that to me is because she didn't want me to ever say the reason why I am the way I am is because I didn't have a father. And when you look at this, it will allow some individuals to say the reason why I am the way I am is because these are my genes. It's an easy scapegoat for potentially the lack of education, the lack of dealing with your environment, the lack of work on your end to stop the fat gain. And it's harsh, but it's true.
Yeah, I think we all have our own adversity to overcome.
Yeah.
And one adversity is having too much stuff. Well, we've taught rich kid syndrome, right? So we all have adversity. It's just a matter of what you're dealing with, what your adversity is to overcome. And it might be a slower metabolism, but it still can be overcome.
Yes.
It might be a propensity to be addicted to drugs or alcohol or whatever. And that's something that you need to overcome. So it might be harder than it is. Like, it's going to be harder for me to shoot a basketball than LeBron. It's going to be harder for, a normal guy off the street to build muscle. Like, probably all three of us have, I'd say we all have pretty good muscle building genetics, right? We're not Phil Heath, but we're okay. So we're always going to have, something to overcome. And the thing is, be the best you that you can be. And we're not asking people, or I'm not, when I say don't be fat, it doesn't mean be jacked. It doesn't mean be 3% body fat or even 10. Don't be 50. Be healthy. And I can't imagine how bad these people feel when they wake up in the morning. Like, their normal is my worst day ever. I want to die. Their normal, the inflammation, the pain, systemic. Have you seen what obesity does to your body? The inflammatory markers, everything's harder. Nothing works right. Erectile dysfunction. Those are all things that stem from obesity. And it's the comorbidity for everything from heart disease to even cancer is more likely if you're fat. So when I tell people to not be fat, it's not because I'm not in the fat acceptance. No, it's because I don't want people to die.
Yeah.
I don't want you to live an uncomfortable life. You see that Glamour magazine with the fat chick, like, this is healthy. No, it's not. Stop this. We need to stop glorifying gluttony. We need to stop glorifying bad behavior. We need to stop glorifying death. And that's what obesity is. It's death. It is a certain painful, long, drawn out death. You're gonna die.
Hey, baby. I'm joking. Guys, like, comment, subscribe, and head to the Power Project Discord, all right? I know you enjoyed the video. Speak to y'all soon.
Physical health is so poor that it's quite obvious that their mental health is going to suffer at some point as well. So if somebody is, walking up a couple flights of stairs and they get really fatigued, I kind of look at that as like, okay, the stairs might represent something that happens in your day-to-day. Somebody gives you bad news, or you get a bad text message, or something hits you the wrong way at a certain point, and you don't know how to deal with it well. Yeah. And your heart rate gets a little out of whack the same way as the stairs. And so I just kind of think, like, well, why not just be prepared for the stairs? Like, be in better condition. If you have better physical health, I believe that your mental health will be a lot easier to deal with.
Well, also, I mean, if you're in bad physical health, what we've seen, you die.
Yeah.
Like the number one comorbidity for everything is obesity.
Yeah.
And they haven't come out with them yet, but where do you think the obesity rate's at now after 2020 and 2021 having people locked down?
I heard in the subset of a certain age group, it was like, I want to say 8 to like 15 or something. And I'm going to butcher some of this. So I'm just going to say it in very general terms. I don't remember the exact stats, but I want to say it. They said that the obesity rate increased 50% in a similar amount of time before the pandemic happened. Wow. So in this, like, I guess you'd say 2 years. So in the previous 2 years, we were still gaining weight. Like everyone's still
getting fatter.
Getting fatter.
Yeah.
Especially our youth.
Oh my God.
But in the same time frame, that has doubled since the pandemic has started.
That's insane. And that's something we really need to work on as a society.
It was like 30,000 people in a study or something like that.
That's a very good size, by the way. That is a huge study. Even if it's a one of those why am I blanking on the term? Whatever.
Like, yeah, I get you.
I'm population studies.
Epidemiological study.
Yep. So even if it's one of those, that whatever. But one thing I've been really pushing home is health and fitness and not being fat. And people get really offended by the term fat. And I think
actually can't even use that in certain things on YouTube now, like in terms of titling.
Well, I tell people to unfat themselves because that is the number one way you can survive.
Yeah.
Look, man, in 2015, I got hand, foot, and mouth disease, and it crushed me. 1 in a million adults can get it.
Pull that up.
It's horrible, dude.
I've seen a picture of
it. My skin on my hands, my nails fell off. I couldn't walk for 5 days.
What caused it?
Children's Museum. Yeah, we went to a children's museum. Those little dirty bastards.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so most adults can't get it. Gross. I got it the worst.
I'm lucky because my feet won't reach my mouth. So,
so
you haven't tried hard enough.
Oh, these poor kids.
I mean, maybe I'm just missing something, but like, how is it? So what? Like maybe you touched something and then maybe something got in your mouth.
It could have been, or just virus. Like viruses are.
I don't want to. Nope, not pulling it up.
No,
I can't. I can't see kids like that. That sucks.
Yeah, no, it's gross.
Yeah, it's nasty. But
most parents kind of know what it is. Yeah,
yeah. It's my kids literally got a sore in their mouth. It wasn't anything, but since I never had it as a kid, I got it as an adult. So what I'm saying is the reason it only affected me for 5 days, and I didn't have to get anything amputated or whatever else can happen with that, is because I was in shape.
Yeah.
So the thing is, we're gonna get sick. Whether it's the flu, whether it's the thing we can't talk about, whether it's whatever, whether it's cancer, your chances of surviving the environment, what it throws at you, are multiple times higher. And we know that the people who died in the last couple of years of the thing we can't talk about, most of them were obese or had comorbidities. Now, I'm not saying that lean people can't die. I'm saying that every day you want to improve your chances of not dying.
Absolutely.
Because life is awesome. Also, being in shape, your quality of life is awesome. Like, dude, my quality of life is so awesome.
How old are you right now?
I'm 41.
Yeah.
Shit. Well, I mean, just the other night, like where my son had a soccer birthday party at an indoor facility. They're like, okay, let's play pickup games, dad versus kids.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Let's go. Let's rock. The other day I was coaching my wrestling kids and, making them do sprints and they weren't running hard enough. So I ran with them. Because if you let an old bodybuilder beat you, fat guy's not really the right term. If you let an old bodybuilder beat you, you suck.
What does that run like this?
Yeah, I was gonna say, what does that look like?
What does it run like?
I look pretty awesome. Okay. So the thing is, I could show you guys later. Like I'm actually, because I'm an Exos performance coach, like my movements are actually awesome. Like lateral skipping, pop skipping, all that. And I've demonstrated them so many times. And
I'm just giving you shit, by the way. I know you move.
I look stupid though. Like I do look stupid.
You look like you look like this fucking John Cena thing up here, man. Like you look like this.
I look ridiculous. But when the kids look at me and they're like, I did not expect him to move like that,
Yeah.
But yeah, I sprinted. It was like 20 degrees out. We're in the morning at the wrestling team out there, the kids who are going to regionals. And I'm like, y'all ain't running hard enough. Because what I did is I purposely brought my daughter there, who's a sophomore female wrestler. She's the only girl there. I'm like, don't let my daughter beat you. And she beats like all of them. I'm like, okay, she's going to beat you, but I can't beat you.
Yeah.
And she beat like 50% of them, but they picked
good
it
for
up.
her. Good for her.
Well, she's a beast. My kids are just ridiculous. They're great. I don't know if it's on accident or what, but they're just doing really cool stuff. And I'm just kind of along for the ride. And it's almost in spite of me.
Well, captain of the football team and captain of the cheerleading team make babies. What do you expect?
I don't know, man.
How have you encouraged your kids to be healthy?
Well, I mean, we don't. That's the thing. I get the main message I get on Instagram, which is why I'm kind of trying to do more kids training stuff, is when can my kid train? How do I get my kid to train? And I never told them to train. Like my kids asked me.
But maybe you encourage them to play?
Well, I mean,
or options to go outside.
Get off your damn iPad, let's go. Or go play with them. Hey, I have a soccer ball, let's go.
Yeah.
Hey, let's go.
That's the main thing right there. I think go play with them.
Bingo.
Parents like, go outside, play some soccer. It's like the kid's not going to randomly
drinking a 6-pack.
Kid's not going to randomly do that.
No, I mean, they do when they get older because it's become, but also I think seeing me wake up every morning and training. I think that's the thing. It's lead by example. Like you can't have a parent. I got in trouble because they thought it was about them. I did a video on basically club sports, and these parents go to the soccer games, and it could be a 10 o'clock game. Afterwards, they're at a sports bar getting drunk. And it's endemic. And the reason I said it is because my brother, who actually has a baseball club, he was talking about it. But let's just say that a couple club teams, they do that. And I'm like, guys, I don't know if we want to set that example that we should always be getting drunk at soccer tournaments. And I think we could do better. I think they want to lead by example. And needless to say, everybody on the team hates me now. But my thing is that all I ever did was just live my life. And I led by example. And going back to, the time I missed with my kids now know that to be successful, you have to work your ass off. Because my kids were alive when I was driving literally for 3 weeks at a time, slanging branched chain amino acids with Extend.
Hey, little mama, let me whisper in your ear. Like, comment, subscribe to the channel because we continue to bring you peak content on this channel. Obviously, you guys are here. You guys have watched the whole video. So like, comment, subscribe. All right? See you later.
I think the times where we can get away with not lifting, I think they're over. I think they're completely gone in the United States for most people, because most people aren't carrying around like sheetrock. They're not like building shit. People aren't really looking for those jobs anymore. So maybe some people out there that do have manual labor jobs and they use their body physically. Those people can just get away with some simple changes in their diet and maybe going on a walk here and there. But from what I saw, it's kind of heartbreaking in a way, because you're like, I'm not sure. I don't believe that there's anything we can do for some of these people. I think they're kind of gone. I think their time is sort of past. Now, anyone can pick up a habit and anyone can improve. And all of us here are evidence of that. Like, we've all switched and done different things and, gone different ways with fitness and jiu-jitsu and running and things like that. But these people are just they're very stuck. And I think that in our society today, where there's the pharmaceutical companies stepping in, and there's the government, and there's just like a lot of conflicting information on like what's, I think some people sometimes think that lifting in some ways, or trying to lift heavy, is like unhealthy. Trying to get lean is unhealthy. Like, oh, you don't look good. Like your face is getting skinny. Like, that's not good, And I think that we don't understand how sick we really are. And I just saw that everywhere. And then once you see it, it's hard to unsee it.
Yeah.
And it's hard to like stop talking about it. But that's all Andy and I could talk about. And then you feel like so judgmental. You're like, I'm just sitting here like judging people. This is not productive. But at the same time, I'm just thinking, can these people be helped or assisted? And I think the answer is to maybe just go back a couple generations, or to go to the most recent generations rather, and just try to teach this stuff to our kids. I think it's super important. I think physical education, as David Weck has said, it is the education. And I think in this country, it needs to move to the fucking front of the line. Like, it's time. It's time for it to, like, I'm being 100% serious. It's time for it to move right into the front of the line of it being first and foremost the thing that you learn, and the thing that you absorb, and the thing that you improve upon as you go through your scholastic career here in the United States. I think it's more important than math. I think it's more important than spelling and reading and everything else, because if you don't have your health, what do you got? You don't have your faculties together. You're sick. You're unhealthy. Or, someone could challenge that and say, well, hey, it's at least equal, right? Okay, fine. They can be even, but they're not even at all, because in this country, we're not providing, I don't think, enough opportunity. I'm not saying that school should do this exclusively. Never a great idea to rely on government for really much of anything. They're never make, in terms of our school system, it's very rare for them to make changes that are really big and impactful that move the needle. It takes a long time. So I think we need to figure out ways to get this into our own homes, the dads and the uncles and the aunts and the grandmas, grandpas, and all the people that can encourage their young kids to throw a ball around, to move around, to play sports when they're young. So that way activity is bred into your lifestyle. I'm not talking about like just getting kids into a gym, although some of that would be smart as well, because it'd be great to teach them, what some of their exercise might look like years from now, when it's not as easy to get together, 10 people on this side and 10 people on that side to play a football or soccer game or baseball game or whatever it might be. You might have to have, artificial exercise, which is you going to the gym and throwing around some weights. So I would love to see, some changes like that happen, or more of us try, because again, people are, what they said about COVID was that people had up to 4 core morbidities, which is, and it's just insane. People have 4 things that are leading them to be so sick that it was easier, it left them more susceptible to getting ill, to getting sick, and to having COVID be more impactful on them. It's speculated that it's like, I think maybe 15% of the population has like full metabolic health, meaning just you have full access to what your body's supposed to do in reaction to the foods that you eat. So like if Nsima wants to just eat a giant bowl of cereal, it's not going to have any negative impact, because he's got, his metabolism is good. It's going to handle it in a particular way. But some of these people that we saw, and I think it's unfair too that we give, again, I don't think it's healthy to like sit there and judge people, but I think certain age groups get a pass, and I don't think they should. I don't think just because you're 65 that you get a pass that you're not fat. It's like, no, you still are over fat and under muscled tremendously. And that is why it might be normal for people that are 60, 65, 70 to be very ill and to not be able to move around really well, because that is the norm, because people don't take care of themselves. But it doesn't have to be the norm. It doesn't have to be. We should be able to push that off a lot further. And the people that I saw that were in shape, that were, it was just like, I don't know, it was like 1 out of like 1,000 people, it was like, so it was just like mind numbing. I was like, this is insane. And I'm aware of it. I've seen it before. I know this, but I just saw it more so than I've ever noticed it even before. And I think the older crowd, our kids as well, but the older crowd is a lot fatter than we're paying attention to. And so, and that really it puts a lot of pressure on our healthcare system. It puts a lot of pressure on our pharmacies, and it leads everyone to kind of think and be hopeful that there's going to be some sort of magic pill at some point that's really going to help. Ozempic is going to help. And hopefully I really hope those things do help. That would be awesome. But it's not just a problem of people being fat. It's not just a problem of people overeating. It's people just not having, they have no muscle, none. And it just sucks, because you're like, that guy probably can't even do a push-up. It's like, man, could you make it to 60? Could you make it to 70 and still be able to do a couple push-ups? I think you could.
Absolutely.
I think you fucking can. I think you can do it.
And with like the focus, and it's great that nowadays people are really focusing on their mental health more and doing all of that. But, some people talk about like mental health, physical health, and spiritual health. But the thing is when you're physically healthy, that feeds into your mental health. Like a lot of people have had physical activity help and potentially get rid of their depression and their mental health issues, because they're able to start doing something and exerting themselves a bit and getting out of their mind. So many people do that. But, if you can just get yourself to handle your physicality, and your kids can learn that, and that can just become a habit. Because everything we talk about on this show isn't about just going to the gym and working out, or going to a jiu-jitsu class and working out. It's trying to build this into your life, and the corny shit about it's a lifestyle, like adding some of those things into your life so that it's not something you think about, and then your physical health is just part of the way you live. A lot of things become so much easier.
For the people that you were you were noticing, were you able to tell, like, are they from Iceland or Americans? I'm pretty sure, but like, I mean, was it just like across the board, like from every corner of the globe coming?
You know what? I think it's everywhere now. I think it's hit so many countries. Maybe countries that have less, probably not, because they don't have so much abundance, and they have to, like, if you've got to like hunt your food, or so in certain areas, I think it hasn't really hit them as hard. But I would say, like when traveling through like Europe and Italy and a bunch of other countries over the last couple years, it just seems like it's prevalent everywhere. I mean, in England, more recently, they put some taxes on, what they consider to be junk food, which is like kind of cool. But then also, it's like, I don't know what we consider to be junk food, and that makes some sense, though. It just causes a weird chain reaction that I don't even know how. I don't know how to digest that, because, like, let's just say you said, okay, cereal is basically crap, right? Jack the prices of cereal up, but does that like mess up people that don't have money? Like, does that fuck them up really bad? Like, maybe it does. But maybe you elevate the money there, and then maybe there's some money on the back end to help some of those people still get some of those foods or something like that. I'm not sure. Yeah, I got a picture I'm sending you, Andrew.
That is the rough thing. I mean, a lot of these foods do have there's the benefit of it being calorically dense. So for individuals who, don't have enough money, like, they can buy a lot of these processed foods and get in the calories that they need to be able to survive. But survive, it's tough.
Well, and then people are getting fatter when they're getting older. Again, it's because they don't have the muscle mass. Like, they're not moving as much as when they were young, and they don't have the muscle mass. So what's the difference between someone who's 20 and 30 years old versus someone who's 55, 65 years old? It's not just that they gain some weight, although that does happen. Yeah. It's that they progressively, we hear all the time, like, over the age of 40, you lose 1% of strength. You don't have to. Who loses 1% of strength? Who does studies on? They didn't study me, And I think you need to be a little stubborn about that. I mean, they say, hey, I'm gonna hold on to this shit for a while. Let me see. Can I run? Can I still run a mile at 60? Like, it doesn't have to. The standards don't have to be wild. They don't have to be crazy. I remember years and years ago, I was like, you know what? I want to, when I'm 50 and 60, I want to still be able to squat 315 for a couple reps if I want to, if I want to work my way to that, or just have the capacity to be able to do that. And who knows? I don't know. I'm not quite there yet, but we'll see.
I saw this because on social media, a lot of people have been going wild because apparently there are new guidelines wanting to give kids weight loss drugs and surgery for obesity. And it's kind of interesting.
How old are these kids?
From what I read, it was as young as 12 and 13.
The American Academy of Pediatrics is out with new guidelines for the first time in 15 years when it comes to the treatment for childhood obesity.
I mean, doctors are like suggesting exercise and nutrition, but the main thing is, like, are people doing it? Are habits set within people's lifestyles to make that happen?
Yeah. Do you know what's interesting? I interviewed Stephen Guyenet, and he speaks about obesity. And he said that childhood obesity can be caused by obesity in a mother that can be passed down to the fetus in utero. So we're not just talking about the poor kid. Let's look at mum. Is she big? Is she obese? Is she watching what she's eating to develop the brain of her fetus? And this is what he said. If we know now that you can pass down these obesity genes, or just obesity through poor lifestyle habits of when you are pregnant, it's going to affect the poor kid as well.
Garcia says for as long as she can remember, doctors told her she was overweight. What did the doctor or others tell you to do?
Just to exercise and eat better.
She struggled unsuccessfully for years. Then, at age 15, she developed hypertension and became pre-diabetic. With parental permission, she finally tried bariatric weight loss surgery last June, along with counseling for emotional eating. Since then, she has lost more than 90 pounds.
When it comes to bariatric surgery, I know, and this is again from my conversation with Stephen, sometimes it can be a good thing in overly obese adults. We never spoke about getting that in children. Without knowing too much about her, we've got to really understand where are the eating patterns come from, or is she just, because she said, the doctor said to eat well and exercise. Okay, does she know what eating well is? My brother has 3 girls, and one is 15, then it's 13, and then it's like 10. And what they go through at school now is very different to what I went through. Kids are now more cautious of their weight. But what are the kids at school saying to her? Because they look on TikTok now. When I was young, there was no phones, so I didn't have to see. I just saw the people in front of me. But now you're seeing millions of kids worldwide, and maybe even teenagers, and you think, I need to look like that. I need to be that pretty.
I have people in my life that are friends of mine, and they also have children, and they have bad eating habits. But what tends to happen is that spills over to their kids' eating habits. So they're overweight, and then their children are also overweight. But like Mark, you mentioned, your kids have made decisions based off of what you and Andy eat. Right? It's like what you bring home is what they eat, and both of them are healthy. So
yeah, and I think it also is, on the same token, I think it's a little bit of the roll of the dice. Like, we got lucky that they found that to be helpful in their life, that they found that they're not going to overeat.
I think maybe culture as well comes into it.
The new guidelines from the AAP recommend better nutrition, exercise, and face-to-face counseling. Treatment may also include weight loss drugs and surgery for adolescents who meet the criteria.
What do you think about these new guidelines?
I think that it's definitely a step in the right direction.
How do you thread that needle between body shaming and communicating that there are some consequences to your health if you're overweight or obese?
It is not about how you look, it's how your body is on the inside.
I'm actually curious what you think of that, because as we found on the podcast, if you're older and overweight and obese, that is a much worse outcome than when you're younger and overweight and obese. It's like you can get away with certain things when you're younger, whereas as you age with that issue, if it doesn't pass the eye test, sometimes it's also not going to pass the blood test.
When we think about what's happening internally, I think she mentioned hypertension from being overweight or quote unquote obese. Hypertension, chronic elevated blood pressure can wreak havoc on the brain. We know that if you have elevated blood pressure, it can actually kill, like the tiny capillaries that are 1 cell thick in your brain can collapse. And that's what we see when we get older. How old was this girl?
I think she was 16 when she had, I think it says she was 16.
And that's when a girl is starting to, develop, or maybe they've already developed, but they're starting to interact with the opposite sex. And imagine having a girl say, I've just had surgery and I'm on obesity medication. Like it must be very hard on her. So I can only understand, like, what are the secondary effects of these drugs?
She was mentioning like fat shaming, etc., fat acceptance. What are your thoughts on it?
I have seen a lot of advertising now to say that plus size models are, accepting, and that's great. Generally speaking, I am a plus size model. So to see I'm not, if I was my size, but to see an overly obese woman, I'm talking morbid, unhealthy obesity. And they're putting it, they're in their bikinis and they're like, I'm loving myself. I'm like, unfortunately, that is sickness. We have to really think about what are you doing to your body, your heart, your immune system, and your brain when you are
as somebody
that big.
Studies this, you see the inside more so. Like the outside is a clue, and then you're thinking, man, the machinery inside's got to be all messed up.
Yeah, and so why are we just have a look at LDL. We know that LDL, which is quote unquote the bad cholesterol, if that is elevated over 70, you have an increased risk of cardiovascular disease. So we try and do everything to promote a good and healthy lifestyle. Why should we be giving this morbidly obese woman a chance to say to girls, love your bodies? Because everyone should love their body, but you should want to also be healthy. Obesity is a risk factor for many diseases, and the biggest ones in the world: cardiovascular disease, cancer, and stroke.
Power Project family, how's it going? Now, sleep is essential for your recovery and your performance, which is why we partner with 8 Sleep mattresses. We call them the Tesla of beds. Changes the temperature based off how you sleep. Andrew, how can they get it?
Yeah, head over to 8sleep.com/powerproject. And at checkout, you guys will automatically save $150 off your entire order. Links to them down in the description as well as the podcast show notes.
The AAP is making it clear that more aggressive early intervention is needed.
Really interesting, Dr. Lapook. Thank you.
I say amen to that.
But-
That's true. But not necessarily from the medical community.
You know, it's interesting. They put this out there and she said, you know, after my bariatric surgery, I felt so good. But what was she doing when she said, I tried everything? What was she doing?
Are you insinuating was she actually trying
Was
in terms
she-
of
yeah.
eating better and exercising?
Or what kind of help was she getting?
Yeah.
Who was directing that?
Yeah.
And all that. And it sounds like she was trying to get help and
Which is
didn't
good.
lead to
Yeah.
a great result.
Yeah, but that could be the wrong type of help. Maybe,
Correct.
you know, her parents might have said, that's okay, you can eat a burger. You can eat this, but if we're looking at calories in, calories out, were you tracking that? Were you monitoring it? Do you know what a calorie is?
When it comes to kids, really try to introduce protein to them, many different kinds of protein. I think a huge problem is that a lot of parents are absent. You know, a lot of parents aren't really around, and it is the number one thing in the United States, in my opinion, that kids are not growing up with enough support, however you want to say that, right? But they're not growing up with enough support, and I think that's a huge factor. You'll hear a lot of people say this needs to be taught in school, that needs to be taught in school, and that would be cool. But the government has really never stepped in on anything and really done anything that impactful that's been awesome in the first place. So it's probably never going to happen. It's just wishful thinking. And so instead of waiting for the schools to teach it, teach nutrition in your home, teach exercise in your home.
I think when it comes to the government also not, you know, playing its part, it's about advertising as well, like we said. I recently found out that Coca-Cola food labels with the FDA don't have to be 100% accurate. You can actually, I think you can like be out of range by at least 20%.
That's for everybody. That's important to know. It's for everybody.
What do you mean for everybody?
It's for all nutritional facts and everything. Yeah.
So you're reading a label, okay, for argument's sake, and it says 100 calories on there. Really, that means there's 120 calories. So that's when you add them all up, you're ingesting, if you're calorie counting, you're ingesting. So that's a lie. I was mortified because Coca-Cola do that. When I read this, they lie about the amount of calories within a Coca-Cola can. That's, I think, where marketing comes in. You're not going to see, you know, 3 sexy girls like pouring like water all over themselves or broccoli, right? It's more so, you know.
Like Carl's Jr.
Carl's Jr. Yeah, do you know those?
I don't know who they are. Yeah.
When I was a kid, when I'd see those Carl's Jr. commercials on the TV, I'd be like,
I'm pretty sure she's not eating, you know, those burgers. But see, there we go. Advertising. For young boys, they'd probably be like, I don't know what they're thinking.
I ate
was
Carl's
never
Jr.
a young
after
boy,
that.
so
Well,
I don't know.
It affected me. Yeah.
I don't know how. I don't want to know how. But we'll just say that you wanted the burger.
I did. I really did.
Gave him an appetite.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's think of this real quick. And Louisa, if you could give us just a quick rundown on what you would suggest here, because on the podcast we did with you, I mean, we talk about sleep all the time. Quick things that parents can do to make sure that their kids get their sleep, because that's hard as a parent.
First of all, get rid of the phones because it's going to help with not just getting them to sleep, but also with addiction. We know that addiction to this dopamine addiction that's getting released through the TikTok and through Instagram, that's havoc on the brain.
Yes.
It's also rewiring the brain in different ways and they're seeing things they shouldn't. And if your kid is eating the right amount of food and they're getting out and getting sunlight and running and community involvement, they're being kids, get them out instead of playing video games, and they're exercising and you're watching and monitoring what they're eating to an extent. If all else fails and they're still big, maybe get them a genetic test, find out why. You're ravenous at that age. You're growing rapidly. Your brain is developing and creating so many different neurons. And so you need energy, but it's like, can you control that? Where's the energy coming from? Is it coming in the form of a steak or in the form of like chips and chocolate? So until you exhaust all options and maybe do a genetic test and then figure out what maybe the last resort is, 2 years, let's get you on this protocol but don't let that be the be all and end all. Don't let that be the end of the story. Like, she's had surgery, we don't have to care about the chips anymore and the chocolate.
Chime in about this and let us know what you guys think. I know it's very controversial, but let us know. We're curious. Louisa, where can people find you?
LOUISA, NICOLA on TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram.
Also, you have an amazing podcast.
It's called The Neuro Experience. It's like a university for the brain.
Power Project family, we talk about eating meat all the time on this podcast. Pause. But sometimes you might want to eat some different meat. Pause. You might want to eat duck, chicken, Japanese A5 Wagyu. You might want to change things up. That's why we've partnered with Good Life Proteins, which also has certified Piedmontese beef on their website. Now, all you have to do is head to goodlifeproteins.com and you can select Build a Box with all of the proteins that you want. Then you'll select Subscribe and Save to save money on all of your meat. Pause. Enter code POWERPROJECT to save an extra 5% on any subscription you select. So if you want to get your beef every 2 weeks, you'll be able to save 25% on all of your meat. Again, that's goodlifeproteins.com. Links are in the description along with the podcast show notes. I'm curious about this because you work with a lot of individuals who have obesity. That's you work with primarily. And we've been having a few discussions on the show with the idea of the healthy at every size movement, the fat acceptance movement. Yeah. And a comment that I've been seeing a lot, and we've been seeing a lot, is a lot of people are saying, well, these people would stop stuffing their faces. It's a choice, man. Like, you make that choice, you deal with the whatever. We can't accept it, right? I know a lot of the things that go on metabolically, psychologically with individuals who are obese. Is that actually a choice that people are making? Like, what's going on?
Yeah, it's a great question. There's a lot of people that are like, of course it's a choice, but I would posit this: most people go through life subconsciously. They're when you're young, you're not thinking of whether. I mean, some people hyperfixate it because of their parents or whatever, but most people, like, I don't know, when I was young, I drank like regular soda and had pizza whenever, and I didn't really think of anything about it. Yeah. And I stayed naturally lean, right? Because it was like I just kind of ate to, I'm satiated now. I didn't think anything about it. Whereas other people, they don't think anything of it, but they start gaining weight because they're, the genetics or whatever, appetite regulation is not as good as mine necessarily, or as other people who stay lean throughout their life. And they're subconsciously, it's just all subconscious. We're just kind of living life. We're not really thinking of it. Now, once you develop the obesity, overweight, and then you're going, I should really do something about it. Deciding to do something about it is a choice. You are now consciously aware of it, going like, okay, do I need to do something about it? The problem is then it's not just a simple choice of like, do I want to have obesity or not have obesity? You're literally making choices all throughout the day. Do I want to sit here on the couch, do my work, or do I want to take this meeting and go for a walk? Every little piece of morsel of food that you're thinking about eating, those are all choices. So it becomes multiple choices throughout the day. And then even then, our body starts fighting us, kind of what I talked about. Our brains start fighting us in terms of hunger. So here's the analogy I would say. Obesity would be a choice the same way that walking from New York City to LA would be a choice. Some people could fly to LA, right? They can lose the weight and keep it off, and it was not a big deal. Some people can drive. It was a little bit harder, but they did it. Some people bike, and then some people just have to walk. So technically, like, somebody has obesity and they have the resources. Let's say they have the resources, and they could just pay someone to get them to an island where the food, and they have nothing in this environment that's kind of pushing them towards gaining weight. Okay, so technically then it would be a choice for them, because they're not going to have any choice but to start losing weight, even if they are starving hungry. It's not possible. And also, of course, it's a choice if you can afford these drugs and surgeries or whatever, but let's just cut those out for now. So I would say, like, it's not a choice. Yes, a choice. It's just kind of a metaphorical, silly question that I would just say, let's just understand it's really hard. For some people it's easier, some people it's harder. Some people just probably won't be able to lose weight and keep it off. And I don't want to take away hope from those people. It's just face reality and figure out tools to help them the best we can. So that's how I usually answer that.
Yeah, and it really doesn't matter, like, a ton, right? Like how they got there. Like someone who's an alcoholic, they're an alcoholic, and how they got there, yes, it's important. Maybe they have a trauma in their life, and you see it very often with obesity. There's a trauma, and so it's nice to try to work some of those things out, but the math is still all the same. Like, you still got to figure out this calorie thing, and you still have to figure out, like,
how the fuck can I make it through each day with just eating a little bit less? How is every day or every birthday and every holiday not this like mega celebration? You know, people know me as the big guy. They know that I hammer food pretty good, and like it's always a thing. And people buy you gifts and stuff that probably fall in line with you barbecuing and like just various things that they think that you might enjoy, and you're trying to get yourself out the game like you're in drugs or something, you know. But you can't. You're hooked in there, and you're sort of stuck, and it's not an easy thing. What I really think is cool about you is that you are actually physically working with these people. These are people. Our obese community is not getting served enough. They're not serviced enough. They're not thought about enough. In this country, we don't think about them enough, especially before somebody gets to these kind of critical points. Do you think some of this stuff should be taught at home or in school, or like where should we pick up some of these values? Because I would imagine even just somebody listening to you for 20 or 30 minutes could really help change someone's life forever, in my opinion.
Yeah, I appreciate the comments. That means a lot. I think, you know, culturally as a society, it's also different here in the United States versus other foreign countries where it's just a different culture when you're young. And in society, some places they are more shameful, and it seems to not be as deleterious as here. Here, when we kind of put pressure and stigma and shame, it tends to make people worse and gain weight. It would be nice to start when you're young and have your parents have a nice healthful meal as much as possible. You know, it's interesting though, I see, you know, my daughter and son, they like to eat their goldfish, you know, the little packets of goldfish.
Yeah.
They'll eat some healthy stuff and whatever, some fruit and meat and whatever, vegetables, and then they'll still want some snacks afterwards, and we try to minimize it as much as possible. But you know, you think about other families, it's like, you know, I always make the worst case scenario. Let's say a single mom who has to work multiple jobs, their kid has to sit at home with a TV dinner, a pizza dinner, watching TV or something like that, as opposed to like another family that has a nice sit down meal and they have all as many fruits and vegetables as possible. So it'd be nice on multiple levels to prevent it from first occurring. Like, you know, it'd be nice to just change our environment. It's just really hard to do that on a global scale.
Human beings are amazing. We can figure out anything, but we are clearly designed to rev this engine. We're clearly designed to get these RPMs up, and people just aren't doing it. And so people that aren't doing, they're not participating in that, it makes sense that the brain starts to rust. It makes sense that the body starts to rust. And that's why earlier I was talking about people being broken. I think they are broken because they just they haven't been through those experiences. And people that are on the other side that haven't revved their heart up, haven't done any of those things in a long time, they can't understand our side of it the same way that we can't understand their side of it cleanly because we haven't experienced it. I do not know what it's like to grow up the way that you guys grew up. I don't, you can tell me about it, but what's that experience like? You know, am I going to be able to write about it? Like, am I going to be able to be, you know what I mean? Like it doesn't make any sense, right? Like I have had to walk through it. Now I've been heavy before. I was 330 pounds, but I was a power lifter, and that was for a brief period of time. So I don't know what it's like to grow up being the fat kid. I don't know what it's like to walk into a grocery store and have somebody laugh at you. You know, I don't know, or a little kid point at you, because little kids, they don't, you know, they'll be like, he's fat, you know, they're
brutal.
I've seen that before, and but I've never had that. I don't know what that's like. I don't know what it's like to like cry myself to sleep over some other kid making fun of me because I'm fat or something. So I don't want to pretend that I know what it's like to be on that side, but these are things that I've gathered over the years from having obese people in my family, and then also helping thousands upon thousands of people lose 50 pounds, 80 pounds, 100 pounds. I mean, I've helped so many people lose weight. And I think what resonates with people is the words I use. I use the word fat. I say, don't be fat. And I'm not saying don't be fat as in like, I think that you have, you know, it's not to make fun of anybody. fat is an accumulation, right? Fat is it's an abundance. Like the Bible says to like live off the fat of the land. The fat of the land is like abundance. Like, you know, use what's there for you to fucking eat, basically. And when I say don't be fat, I just mean don't overdo shit. And also don't underdo stuff. The side where you need to like move, you do need to move. The side where you need to figure out your nutrition, like you do have to figure that out.
Yeah. And in regards to what you're saying about like the last time that they got their heart rate up on multiple occasions, it happened most likely back like in PE and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going back to school and kids are dickheads. So these are big people.
Bad experience.
The last time they had to do this, they were belittled. They were made fun of. They were ridiculed. So the first chance that they got to move away from that, they're just like, fuck that. I'm not going to deal with that shit ever again. Go to a gym where these guys thrive? Like, no, I'm not going to do that. So now here we are like, oh, you just need to move a little bit more. And then we're like, dude, like, we're not being fat phobic, but that's how it's being received, right? Because you're just like, you want me to go do the things that I got made fun of? Like, no, I'm not gonna.
And it's particularly nefarious if you've been a child that's been big your whole life, because you don't know what anything else feels like. You don't know what it's like to just walk a good distance and not go out of breath. You don't know what it's like to, I mean, one aspect is like when you hear certain people talk who are obese, they have to have certain, their breathing is labored. Like you feel labored when you talk a lot, right? You don't know maybe what it's like to feel another way. Your knees feel a certain way. You think a certain amount of pain is normal. So since that pain is normal, you don't even, it's not pain. It's just how things are. So if you don't know what a better feeling is like than what you are and the way you feel, it's okay. It's normal.
You know, it's tough when somebody's really big. They have to think about everything. They have to think about, you know, if they're going to, let's just say they want to go to a seminar. They might not be able to go to a seminar because they don't know what the chairs are like. And then maybe they don't want to ask. You know, I'm sure, especially in like today's climate, like people would be accommodating to say, hey man, I'm very, very heavy. You know, I'm willing to pay for this seminar. I want to come to it. You know, do you think you can accommodate, or could I bring my own chair? Somebody will, right? But like, we think those things are funny. You know, we see those things and those things are different. And so we're human and we don't know how to fucking deal with it. A guy walks by and, a guy in a wheelchair goes by and he's got, you know, he's missing both legs. I mean, look, you look at them like when you recognize that somebody has something different, whether it's someone that's 7 feet tall or someone that is 4 feet tall, you do a little double take. You recognize these things. And so I think it's really hard when you're a heavier person just to, you know, yes, we understand all these hurdles, but here's the thing that I think is the most important factor. You can't just plant your flag in the ground and say, this is me and I'm just going to revolve around this fucking flag that I planted here. And I'm just going to live under these conditions all the time because some kid made fun of me because my boobs jiggled when I ran when I was in 5th grade. You're just going to stay this. You're going to die at 40 because some kid made fun. That's not reasonable. That doesn't make any fucking sense. We've all been made fun of. We've all been ripped apart. Again, I don't know what it's like to be that heavy, and I don't know what it's like to be the brunt of a lot of jokes that way. And I'm not pretending to, but it still doesn't make any sense to go on living your life the same exact way, making your conditions, you're making your conditions worse because of what some motherfucker said to you or somebody ripped you apart. It just does. It's not reasonable. Like it's your life. You're going to die young. You're not going to be able to watch your kids graduate high school or get married because of that. Like that's not good enough, man. I think you need to figure out a way to take a step. And I think the fucking awesome part about the internet, while people might bash and might say, hey man, that's cool, you're doing those exercises, but you're still fat, or whatever the bullshit is that people are throwing at you. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of people that are willing to help. I know Cole Robinson, he throws around the word fat a lot. He says a lot of crazy stuff. That motherfucking guy helps people for free. People DM him. He has small requirement of you. He wants you to just track what you did. so he can get a little publicity out of assisting you. That's all he asks, but I think that's pretty cool. I help a lot of people in my DMs. My gym here is free. Super Training Gym, 855 Riverside Parkway, West Sacramento, California. We're open every weekend from 10 to 1 if you want to come check it out.
Come train.
Come train. You know, we're assisting a bunch of people that are bigger, and they're moving around, and they're starting to make some progress. And, you know, so, I mean, it's not an easy thing to figure out, but I do think the only ways to figure these things out is kind of like, unfortunately, it's like a one person at a time type of thing.